Hey Sainers, welcome back to the Saints TV channel. This one we're just going to quickly talk about the press conference. It just happened. Ross Lyon was unveiled to the AFL world officially in the flesh at RSCA Park with President Andrew Bassat and CEO Simon Lethlean. It was a classic Ross Lyon press conference. He was honest, he was raw, and he threw a lot of analogies around, and that's what I love about him. He's very much like your traditional sort of AFL coach, but I think we can all come away from that press conference and feel pretty comfortable. I would like to think with his approach. I love that he did acknowledge, and a lot of people have criticised him, for being quite defensive back in the day, even though stats-wise, 09 and 10 we were top 4 for attack and top 4 defence, but he understands that footy's changed. He mentioned explicitly that we can run. That's what he said. They can run. So he wants to utilise that in the new game plan. He wants it to be it sounds like a fast sort of game plan, which is really exciting because I know a lot of Sainers were a bit worried that he would come in and kind of basically copy exactly what he did 10 years ago. But that is not the case with what I heard in that press conference. They asked him about kind of, the journey of his previous departure and kind of how it evolved. And he said, when this opportunity started to open up, I reflected on the special bonds and friendships I have with past players and staff that I've maintained since 2007 and my departure. I presented to the board and I got very emotional. When I left, I dropped an iron curtain. When I spoke about that moment and how I felt about St Kilda, I did get very, very emotional, and it unleashed a lot of memories. There were a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but it is sort of really validated how I felt about the club if there was any doubt. So I really love that. He goes on to say, I feel like I'm ready to take the emotional risk to give everything without any guarantee, and that guarantees you the best chance. That's the message for my players. And there were some players in the room. I do love that he did make mention of Marcus Winhager. He said that when he rocked up to RSCA this morning to take some promo shots, that he saw Marcus in the gym. And you can already get a feel that if you're a hard worker like Marcus Winhager and Ross spots you, you're going to be in his good books at the very least. So that's a really good sign that Ross has already spotted a few players that he likes, and I reckon he can turn Marcus Winhager into a very, very special player. They also asked Bassat about kind of the last 10 days and if they were talking exclusively to Ross Lyon or if we looked at anyone else. They go and say, Ross's unwavering pursuit of on-field excellence and uncompromising standards are exactly what we believe we require to take this club forward. That's what Andrew Bassat said. Importantly, Ross shares with you a love and passion for our club, and he has a deep desire to see it respected and celebrated, which was a great point because Ross has gone on to say that he really doesn't like the narrative, and he mentioned it again in this press conference, that he doesn't like the narrative for St Kilda. He thinks it's quite disrespectful, but that doesn't mean that it's not accurate, and he really wants to be the person that can really change that and change that view. Bassat also said, Ross is aligned in our vision and his experiences within the industry, particularly as someone with such an in-depth knowledge of St Kilda, should give our members a high level of confidence moving forward. As we embark on our 150th year, we will not shy away from our ambitious goals for this club, both on and off the field. And then Lyon kind of mentioned that if you dream, anything's possible, but if you don't do the work, you're just a daydreamer. And I love that. He really does summarize a lot of the bigger sort of discussion points that we talk about that either we agree or disagree with about him and his approach to coaching. He really does summarize it, and that is, in a nutshell, exactly what Ross Lyon is all about. He thinks that anything's possible if you've got the right people involved, if you've got the tools, and you've got the attitude. So right now, he believes, and he did say that, it's kind of the first time he's walked through RCA Park ever, and he was gobsmacked by how good the facilities are. But he said they're just facilities at the end of the day. You've got to use them, you've got to work. They're not going to get you to the pinnacle. They're not going to get you to Everest. That's what he always says. To climb Everest, to get to the flag, we're chasing Geelong, we're chasing Chris Scott, and they put in the work, and they're the benchmark. So he's got his eyes firmly on them, and he did make note on the way they've played this year and how they changed from being quite defensive, chip it around style football to being really aggressive through the middle, using their endurance. And Tom Atkins was the key takeout that he mentioned from Geelong. You know, people thought that they were a bit silly to get him, but he turned into one of their best players of the year. So he really does believe that there's no time frame on success. It's when you're ready and when you're willing to put in the work, that's when it comes. And then he goes on to talk about, I guess, sort of previously what had happened. He said, I had a reputation about what I was for a long time, and I really liked that. It did change though, even though I don't think it was justified, but there was a huge price to pay. I think it's changed the course of the events in the history of this club as well. I didn't get to exit those champion players in the manner that I believe they should have been. There's a lot of people that paid a price for that. But in saying that, we're all as good as our next moment. It's a wonderful opportunity. And he did mention that a few times, that we're as good as our next moment. And that's, you know, a lot of that is on him. And he also mentioned that he doesn't want to get involved in the weeds. He specifically mentioned the weeds analogy, which I thought was really interesting. And I guess that was alluding to the fact that when he was at the club prior from 2007 to 2011, that he was, you know, he'd put the blinds down. No one could get inside the St Kilda bubble. He was very strict. He was very protective of the players and the club and didn't let anyone in. And that also meant that he didn't want to relinquish any sort of control, even with his line coaches. But he did mention that this time around, you know, he's already spoken to Corey and Wright. He's spoken to Lenny Hayes. And he's really, I guess, adapted since then. He believes that he'll happily kind of allow them a bit more power. They'll handle their departments a bit more. He doesn't really want to worry about them too much. He'll follow I guess he'll iron out the bigger picture. But in terms of, you know, attack, defense, he wants to kind of have those line coaches in place that he can trust, that can get the job done and deliver the message that he will be pushing every training session. So I really like that, because that puts to bed a lot of the worries, I think, from a lot of Saints fans, is that Ross is going to come in and just be the Ross that we knew 10 years ago. That is absolutely not the case. He's adapted, he's learnt, he understands that he's made mistakes previously, but he's also got this opportunity to show that he's willing to, you know, that he's grown from that. And he did say, like, even to the media, that he's willing to let them in a bit more, show them a different side of him, more internal side of him, because previously, like I said, he's always had these, you know, the blinds down and you couldn't see anything. It was a St Kilda bubble, and if you weren't a Saints player, you didn't know what was going on in there. So I think that this is a really, really good appointment. The full presser is actually on YouTube, I believe, already. So if you search Ross Lyon press conference, it should come up. And I think, yeah, that was kind of the main talking points for me. I think that he did say that, you know, he doesn't go looking for jobs. So he didn't go knocking and saying, hey, sack Ratton, I want to come in. It took a call from Lee Matthews, he said, to really kind of convince him that possibly this could be an opportunity. And it eventuated. They had meetings. The club did not interview any other candidates. It was Ross Lyon. Did ask, you know, if Ross Lyon wasn't available, what the hell would we have done? And there were contingencies, and I kind of wonder what that would be. But they really did say that based on the review that's been going on for the last couple of months, that it really did iron out that Ross Lyon was the man, and it was Ross. And then whoever else was a far gone second place. So Ross was the man. They got him. He's announced. He's done his press conference, and those are my brief thoughts on the presser. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Sainers. I think that it's, you know, obviously this is the first press conference, but we know what we're going to get from Ross Lyon in every sort of press conference. He controls the room. He's really clear about his messaging. That's the one thing that I love about him, is that sometimes when you'd listen to Brett Ratton or even other coaches from other clubs, they kind of have a roundabout way of getting to a point, but he just gets straight to the point in a really clear manner that everyone can understand. So that's what I'm really excited about with his delivery, you know, in terms of key messages at quarter time, half time, you know, preseason messaging, training messaging. I think that he's got a really good understanding of how to communicate to a broad range of players, because he did mention that, you know, he was pretty strict in 09 and 10. Obviously, we were competing for flags. You've got to be. But he's learned that, you know, you've got to, I guess, adapt your messaging depending on the type of player. And he's got, obviously, some young kids as well, around the 15 to 20 years of age. So he knows how to kind of talk to those demographics. And, I think that's going to go a long way into helping him communicate with the youngsters like Owens, Windy, Naz, even Max King. And then obviously he's got a good understanding of how to deal with the more mature age players in that 25 to 28 year range, which there's a fair bulk of them now that are basically in their prime. So this is a good time for Ross Lyon to help them fulfill their best form of their careers and hopefully get the best out of the youngsters, and that can hopefully see us climb the ladder. So I thought it was a great press conference. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Sainers. It filled me with a lot of confidence. And yeah, obviously we're going to hear more from Ross during the week or the coming weeks, definitely. But in terms of that, it was a good 28-minute press conference. I thought he handled the media extremely well. He didn't throw anyone under the bus. He was very clear with his messaging that he's here for unfinished business and he wants to win a flag. So that's a clear message that not a lot of coaches do straight out the gate. They're kind of very slow. They're very vague about what their goals are because they don't want to set an ambition that's too high because that just sets you up for failure. But I think with some of the players in the room, you could see that he was really setting a standard straight from the start. So I thought it was great. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, if you're liking these videos, I'm kind of just chopping them up during the day. Whenever there's big news to discuss, I'm doing videos and having a chat. So if you enjoy it, please please comment your thoughts on it, whether you like the presser or not. Any key messaging you took out of that, put in the comments and we can discuss it. And most importantly, please subscribe. There's going to be plenty of more Ross Lyon and just general Saints videos coming out in the next couple of weeks, especially with this breaking news. And I've got a couple of whispers on some more breaking news. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy the rest of your week, Sainers, and I'll see you very soon on another video. But until then, go you mighty Sainers. See you guys.